How would you like to sit down and have a conversation about one of my favorite things in the entire world to grow? That's right. Today we're going to be talking strawberries, but not just any strawberries. Today we're specifically going to be talking about bare root strawberries and why they might be the best avenue of approach as far as trying to cultivate your own berries at home. And now, specifically in this video, we're going to be focusing on 5 specific topics. One, what is bare root strawberries and why do you need to plant them in your garden? Two, of course, planting and prepping bare root strawberries, as well as soil prep and amendments, winter care, and then, of course, at the end, I'm going to give you some recommendations on strawberries that I think will do well in this North Texas region. See, when it comes to bare root strawberries, what you're getting is a hand plucked, perfectly pruned strawberry plant. I mean, you can see right here from the crown that we've pruned back all of the foliage and so forth. And then down here, look at these roots. We have some nice, healthy, long roots. These roots are about maybe 6 to 8 inches or so, give or take. And this is why I say going bare roots is the much better option than going from seed. So these plants have been, like I said, hand plucked from the field, and these plants are now just dormant, waiting to be awakened. And so you're more than likely going to have a better overall strawberry production because it's going to shorten the amount of time that you have to wait if we're growing from seed. Now, by no means am I telling you don't grow strawberries from seeds. I'm just saying that when you're growing from seeds, you're looking at a duration of about a year before you would even get your first berry. When I plant these will be ready to go right there in the spring. Now let's consider costs. All right, so first we can go ahead and just eliminate seeds from the equation, right? Because we know seeds are going to be by far going to be the cheaper option. But how much of your time and effort are you going to spend on those strawberries before you see an ROI, right? A return on your investment. Now, if we look at, for instance, like fully grown plants, you could anywhere from a fully developed plant, you're probably spending between $15 to $25, give or take, depending on what variety we're talking about. You want to know how much these cost me? I would say maybe $1.25, maybe $1.50, give or take, per bare root strawberry plant. And as far as the amount of time and effort that I'm going to spend on growing these, I say it's worth it. But of course, always do what's best for you and best for your budget, right? Now, as far as where I got my actual bare root strawberries from, this is a nursery that I've actually been purchasing from for about maybe 3-4 years, give or take. And it's a nursery by the name of handpickednursery.com. If you're interested in checking out their varieties and see what they have, I'll make sure to put a link for them in the description. And now, with that being said, I know some of you might be thinking, well, can I just go with bare root strawberries that might be sold at a big box store? You totally can. But from my experience, this is my own personal experience. A lot of those roots, those bare roots, when you get them, they are super dried out. See, the reason why I like going with Handpicked Nursery is they make sure that these roots have been kept in a moistened state when they're shipped to you. And I mean, they ship within about a week or so, and you get some nice, moist, well taken care of. I mean, these are some nice, healthy roots here. The ones I've seen at the big box stores, I've honestly had, I'm going to say, maybe about a 15% success. Can I say that? Success rate on those bare root strawberries. Now, of course, your experience may be different. I'm just saying, this is the nursery that I prefer. Now that we have a strong understanding of what bare root strawberries actually are, now it's time to go ahead and prep these berries and get them ready for transplant. Fun fact, did you know that strawberries, botanically speaking, are not actually even berries? No, they're actually aggregate fruit because the way the strawberry grows, the seed is actually on the outside. Botanically speaking, it's actually not a berry, but I digress. And now when it comes to prepping the berries, getting them ready for transplant, what we're going to do is simply just kind of slowly ease the roots apart because one thing I like about Handpicked Nursery, they aren't just all clumped in here together. They actually take time to make sure to lay the roots out, so they're not really that tangled. And then now what we're going to do is we're actually going to soak the roots to wake them up out of their dormant stage. And now here we go. See, this is what I like about the bare roots that I'm getting from Handpicked Nursery, because I mean, you are getting some nice healthy berries here, and all I'm doing is just kind of easing them apart. And again, I'm not having to work too hard, and what I'm doing is I'm placing them in containers so that I can, one, pour in my water to be able to wake up the roots, but I also want to make sure that I'm not submerging the crown. That's going to be the top portion of the plant because we don't want to completely suffocate it. What we want to do is we want to moisten those roots up, and we're going to let this sit for about a good hour, maybe even two, depending on how I feel. Now, when you're trying to wake your strawberries up out of dormancy, what you want to do is actually just soak your strawberry roots in water for about an hour. But here's what I like to do. See, I like to add in 60 milliliters of Thryve Roots Berry into my 2 gallons of water that I'm going to be allowing my strawberries to soak in. Thryve Roots is an organic and OMRI listed soil amendment and root booster that's derived from a proprietary blend of natural plant extracts that's going to help your roots and your soil thrive. Because as you and I both know, healthy roots equals healthy fruits. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply allow these to soak for about an hour, making sure that I pull the crowns up out of the water because I don't want to completely submerge the crowns. We're just trying to soak those roots in there. Look at that. I had a little bit left over, so might as well give some to my banana. Oh, and by the way, yeah, bananas are actually berries. It's so interesting. Strawberries botanically are not berries, but bananas botanically are berries. Isn't it wild? And while we let our new babies go ahead and soak, what we're going to do now's the time to go on to our third subject, and that's prepping our soil. Now, a lot of people have asked me specifically for my soil recipe when it comes to strawberries, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. I have everything that I need to go ahead and start setting up my strawberry soil. And I'm going to share with you the specific recipe that I've been using for years on my strawberries in just a moment. But first and foremost, I want us to understand what strawberries actually need from their soil. Because I don't know if you've noticed up here, I don't really have any fertilizers. And there's a reason for that. And see, when it boils down to it, strawberries, and just like most of your plants, it's really it's not that they need fertilizers, which don't get it twisted. Yes, they actually do need fertilizers. It's an essential part of the growth and development of any plant. But what they need is accessibility to it. And that's what I want to focus on. And the way we achieve said accessibility is going to be in the soil pH. Now, specifically, when we're talking about strawberries, we're looking at an overall soil pH of about 6.2 to 6.5. Like a 6.3, it's about that sweet spot that we want for our strawberries. By achieving that optimal pH, that's when we're going to have access to the nutrients that's already present in the soil. And so once we've established the pH, the next step, we want to establish proper drainage. That's going to be key specifically when we're talking about our strawberries because strawberries, they, in all earnest, I don't know any plant that actually just likes sitting in like waterlogged soil. I mean, of course, there's plants that thrive in swamps and bogs, but that's not what we're growing here. We're growing fruits and vegetables. So they really like to have a nice, well draining soil. And the way we'll achieve said slightly acidic, well draining soil is by creating a sandy loam. Now, I really should do just a video specifically on different soil types and how to get the optimum blends. I think I'll probably do that one of these days. But I mean, I digress, of course. So without much further gilding the lily, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the specific recipe on the screen for you. Make sure you take a snapshot of it or jot it down. My preference is I actually keep this recipe in the note section of my phone. That way I don't have to, store it up here with all the vast plant knowledge that I constantly store up there. I keep it in the note section of my phone so I can easily get back to it when I need to. So now that we fully understand the composition, the soil pH necessary for our strawberries, what I want to do now is take a look at one of my existing beds. This is my existing 4x4 that I've planted strawberries in for at least 3 or 4 seasons now. The reason why I want to take a look at this is because, remember, I'm not setting strawberries up to grow for the first time. I'm just amending the beds that I already have, adding to the strawberries that are already existing here. See, because what we need to understand is that when we're gardening, growing, whatever plant for that matter, eventually your soil will start to compact over time, meaning that it will compress more and more, making it harder for those roots to be able to breathe. Because believe it or not, roots actually do need to get a little bit of aeration as well as the soil and, of course, the water as well. So what we're going to do here is we're going to amend this soil. Oh, and I forgot to mention, not only will it start to compress, eventually over time, once your organic matter starts to break down in your soil, it will also start to sink as well. I mean, look at that. Since I've amended this soil, we're probably looking at about a good 4-inch drop just from decomposition of the organic matter that's already in the soil. Plus, we have to mention the fact that over time, your soil, even though we're setting up this slightly acidic soil, through rain and through just natural decomposition process, eventually your soil will start to become more alkaline, which, remember, those aren't the ideal conditions we want for most of our fruits and vegetables, including our strawberries. So we're going to have to amend it to get it back to that pH that we want to get it to. And that's why we're adding the additional soil. Oh, and by the way, if you see all the straw that I have here, this is actually straw that was provided to me by my friends over at Epic Gardening. It's actually a great way to retain moisture, because let's face it, it gets really hot out here in Texas, and sometimes we lose a lot of our moisture for our plants through just pure evaporation. So it's a good way to retain moisture and then also keep our soil temperatures cooler. Because, I mean, even though the variety of strawberry that I'm planting today, my Chandlers, are actually really well adapted to our heat conditions out here in North Texas. But I mean, if I can give them a little bit of help and help keep this soil, cooler, why not? Oh, also, when we get into our winter preps, straw is a great way to prep your strawberries, getting them ready to go dormant. All right. And now comes the fun part. Now we're going to go ahead and plant our bare root strawberries. Now, when it comes to planting, what I like to do is I like to make sure that I'm going to place my hole slightly deeper than the root ball that I have for these bare roots. So let's take a look at this guy right here. So like I said, we have, looking at this root ball here, when we look at this root ball here, from the crown to the end of the roots, I think we're looking at about a good 8 inches or so, just eyeballing it. So I want this hole to be a maximum depth of 8 inches because I want these roots nice and long. I want them pointing down, working with those gravitropic forces, right? Working with gravity. So I want them to be nice and long because as opposed to compacting them, well, they'll get all wound up and bound up and everything. So I want this all the way down in here. So we're going to have to dig this hole deep. All right, now I got the hole as deep as I would like it. And now as far as backfilling goes, I'm going to backfill it with our newly mixed sandy loam mix. And notice how I'm holding it with my hand here. I'm holding the top of the plant. Remember, that's called our crown. I'm holding that crown because you want to make sure when you're backfilling and you're burying that you're not burying that crown because that's where your new foliage and leaves are going to develop. We're just going to press it down just a little bit because remember, we're not trying to compact that soil. We just want to give it a little bit of pressure, as my son would say, about 5% pressure. A little bit of pressure on it so we can kind of get those air gaps out of our soil. And speaking of my son, honestly, in my opinion, I might be biased because I'm his dad, but I think one of the best strawberry videos I've ever made was actually a video that I did with him. I want to say maybe last year we were planning. Maybe he was 5 at the time. God knows his strawberries and he knows his sandy loam. If you get the chance, check out that video. I think I'll post it up here somewhere on the screen. And so now that we have our crown right here for our newly planted strawberry, what I'm going to do next is, of course, I'm going to keep on planting, right? Just like Dory says, keep on swimming. We're going to keep on planting. But when it comes to your strawberries, I know sometimes as a beginner garden, we don't want to respect spacing, but you do want to respect spacing when it comes to our strawberries, right? Because strawberries, the one reason why I love these plants is because they give so much back. Because the mother plant of a strawberry will produce runners, and those runners will become new plants, which means more strawberries. So growing strawberries, if you can master it, if you can get it down right, I mean, you can be growing strawberries for years to come. And that's a great activity to do with kids or grandkids. I don't have grandkids yet. My kids are still young, but I digress. So you want to respect spacing. And when we're talking about spacing, you want about 12 inches. Let's see. Yeah. You want about 12 inches between each plant so that you have enough room for those runners to grow. And then for the mother plant itself, you don't want your strawberries to be overcrowded, because then that's when the roots start to get tangled up and compacted. And then everything starts competing for nutrients. And of course, that pH that we talked about before. So 12 to about 16 inches is what you want between each plant for spacing purposes. All right, it's been about 2 weeks. So now what I want to do for you is I want to give you a progress report on how the new transplants are doing. But while we transition, I want to ask not ask a question. I want to answer a question that might be on your mind. Like, Graylin, if you have 13 strawberry patches and they're all constantly producing runners, why are you supplementing your strawberries with bare roots? Well, one is going to be for the educational aspect of it. As we like to say in the education field, this is a teachable moment. And now, with that being said, if you're new here, yes, I am a former educator, and I just want to give a big shout out to all of my educators out there. Um, Much respect for everything that you do. And now, the second reason is going to be the nature of the plant itself. Because a strawberry plant, despite being a perennial, eventually will start to produce less and less. That original mother plant, once she's produced enough runners and she's produced enough fruit, eventually she will start to slow down in production and eventually die off. And thus, I will come out, and once that time has passed, I will eventually propagate those runners off the original parent plant, and I'll use those to supplement where those parent plants might have passed on. But now, that being said, theoretically, could one take runners and keep that life cycle going? Well, yes, totally. If you are able to clip and keep your runners, essentially, you could perpetuate, you know, you could grow strawberries indefinitely. But the only caveat I would say would be to make sure we have some biodiversity in there. So we're going to have multiple varieties of your different strawberries. That's why I like to mix in my June bearing strawberries as well as my Everbearing. If you want more information on June bearing versus Everbearing and the different varieties and so forth, I actually covered a video on that not too long ago, and I'll make sure to tag that somewhere right around here. But let's take a moment and check in on our newly transplanted bare roots. These are our Chandler strawberries, and look at that. She's already started to produce a flower already, and it's only been 2 weeks. And I made sure to have enough spacing so that these girls could get all the space that they need, and they are doing really well. Oh, look, I actually have a tag here to let me know where I have my soaker hose in the ground. And so with that being said, these girls look pretty good, like they're going to be well established before the winter comes in. But let's talk about that for a moment, okay? Let's jump into winter prep. Now, I'm not sure if I touched on this in the video at the early stages, but I want to make sure we understand this. Currently, it's October. I would say this is the ideal time out here in North Texas to go ahead and establish those bare roots, because we really want those strawberries, being a perennial crop, we want them to establish that root system during the fall, right before it goes dormant for the winter, and then pop back in the spring. Actually, when I filmed the video with Epic Gardening just earlier, I actually mentioned that the fact that you want them to be able to pop in the spring, kind of like a raspberry beret. If you've seen the video, you'll understand the Prince reference. But that truly is the point. You really want them to establish that root system first, then go dormant. Then when the spring comes around and they wake back up out of their dormancy, out of their dormant stage, that's when you start getting your real strawberry production. But now when it comes to winter prep, take in consideration, I'm in North Texas, Zone 8B. So out here in the Dallas area, it doesn't really get that cold. I mean, we've had anomalies where it will drop down to like 5 degrees, or remember we had the snow apocalypse of what was that, 2022? And we'll have those anomalies, those one-off seasons. But I mean, it doesn't really, even when it does get cold, it's not really cold for that long. And one thing that's going to be key is it's going to depend on your variety of strawberry. What I mean is you want to pick a variety of strawberry that can handle a little bit of frost, right? So for instance, like our Ozark Beauties are great, all the way up until I'd say like about Missouri or so, going down here to North Texas. So if you have a good variety in mind, or you need some recommendations, definitely hit me up in the comments, and I'll try to help you out with sourcing varieties to do well in your area. But Something to consider as well. This is a free resource that I always recommend to any grower, no matter if you're new, young, old, intermediate, whatever, is definitely check out your local ag extension. Um, you can honestly type in a Google search, my local ag extension for state X, right? And it will give, it's a cornucopia of just useful information about your specific growing zone. For instance, I'm out here in Texas. So my local ag extension is going to be Texas AgriLife, and that's through Texas A&M. So I would go with recommendations based off of what Texas AgriLife recommends grows well in this zone. But at the end of the day, what I'm going to end up doing for my strawberries out here in my microclimate, because even though I'm in the North Texas area around Dallas, I'm not exactly in Dallas. I actually have a little pocket microclimate where my climate's about, maybe let's say 5 degrees colder than the DFW Metroplex. So with that being said, what I'm going to do with my strawberries is I'm going to insulate the soil. And this is going to be right before we get that first real frost. I'm just going to insulate the soil a little bit by using some straw. This will help keep the straw, help keep the roots just a little bit warmer during those real frigid moments. But again, consider that this is my microclimate, my growing situation. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. So just take that in mind. Okay. Also, if you do decide to go with like a straw or a wood mulch or something like that to insulate your soil, make sure you kind of back off of your watering a bit, because you don't want to create a situation where you're potentially freezing those roots out. Honestly, when we start going through winter, I can say that I really don't water at all. All right. So, what did we talk about today? We talked about what are bare root strawberries and why you should be growing them in your garden. We talked about how to plant bare root strawberries, as well as how to amend and make the proper soil that is proper for your strawberries. Then we talked about winter prep. And now what I'm going to do is give you recommendations on strawberries. Now, this is my recommendation specifically to the state of Texas. It may vary depending on your specific, because let's face it, Texas is freaking huge. So it may vary just a little bit, but this is my kind of blanket statement for varieties that actually do well in our state. All right. So we're going to start with the three that I grow here in my microclimate. That's going to be Ozark Beauties, Chandlers, as well as Albions. That's going to be a good mixture of both June bearing and Everbearing, and day neutral strawberries. Then we also have other varieties if we're in some of the more warmer regions of the state. So we have also our Camarosas, we have our Sequoias, as well as our Seascapes. These 6 strawberries are actually will do fairly well. Now, granted, each one of the berries will have their different qualities. For instance, like an Albion, which is a day neutral, it'll have a much smaller strawberry in comparison, but it's going to be packed with flavor. Or our Chandlers might be larger because that's going to be our June bearing. So you're going to have a larger berry, but it's going to produce at a different time. See, that's the key thing to factor in by mixing up and having this biodiversity in your strawberries, by having day neutrals. Um, what did I call them? Everbearings and June bearings. They're all going to be kind of producing at different times, so you can have a constant flow of strawberries. If that's what you prefer, though, because everyone's going to have a little bit of a different reason why they might be producing anything they're growing for that matter, right? I like to have an abundance of constant strawberries so my kids can come out and freely pick their strawberries daily. That's my goal. But if you're somebody who likes making strawberry preserves or jams or pies, maybe you want a big surplus of strawberries all at one time. So, for instance, your June bearings would be better in that situation. So, of course, you adjust based off what your needs and requirements are. Does that make sense? So, this has kind of been my crash course on, bare root strawberries and how to grow them, how to get them established. I hope this information helped you out today. And of course, know that I'm accessible. If you have questions, I am more than happy to answer. You can always not Google me. You can always email me at urbangardeningwithgray@gmail.com. Give me about 24, 48 hours or so, and I'll get back to you and help you out with your question. But it's been amazing speaking with you as always. But I'll talk to you again real soon.